So we're just gonna get going here. It's 8 o'clock and it's a Sunday night, and we want to make this short and sweet. So right before, we had a little meeting right before this, and I want to jump in and just say a couple of things about critique, encouraging everybody to take advantage of that. I think it's something great. I've been around and I've been supervising the critiques, and I see a lot of really positive commentary going on and a great amount of commentary going back and forth. The biggest thing that I'm going to say is, if you can listen to tapes before you go into critique, you'll get more out of critique. So the better prepared you are to come in and ask questions about critique, the more successful it's going to be for you. Dave, Blair, you have anything to add to that for critique?
No, every site that I've been at, everybody's come in well prepared. Obviously, the end of the show, sometimes you're not able to hear all the tapes, but everybody right now is making a really good effort to listen to tapes and come in with questions. So don't be afraid. I mean, utilize the 5 minutes or 6 minutes, depending on how long the critique is, to pick our brains as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Same exact thing. I mean, that he hit it on the nail. I mean, critiques have been pretty good. And yesterday, everybody seemed to come in pretty organized. So the ones that didn't, it was like the last couple that were on that came into critique, they actually had questions that were a bit more, we've been hearing this over the last few weeks. Did you see that? So they had questions already because they weren't able to listen to commentary. So they came prepared with other questions. So it was good.
Great.
Awesome.
Great. Well, we've got our administrative team plus a great guest with us, Lee Carlson. Juno, I'm going to turn it over to you. You can kick it off here tonight. So Juno.
Hey, everybody, thank you for joining us again. I'm just going to, obviously I judged yesterday out of state. So I'm just going to give you a couple ideas. We kind of talked last week of just maybe improving on things that you already have established in the show and not getting in depth into adding additional things. But one thing that was standing out, and it's usually in a battle, believe it or not, you have, and this is a nationwide problem, and I'll have Lee, he'll kind of confirm that, I'm sure, that there's a beautiful moment and it's breathtaking and it's really great. But then what happens after the applause? I mean, because that's where the judge is really keen in. He's not just keened in on the moment. Obviously, he or she is keened in on the impact and stuff. But in the old days, it was the development into it. Most bands now started to figure out, okay, I got to develop into this impact and they keep it interesting and they keep it whatever. So just think about, after the applause. And a lot of times it happens with a color guard because, during the ballad, that's when most bands really showcase the guard in that tender kind of way. So just think about after it. And then the same thing if there's like a big impact, you leading our eye on this great sequential, whatever. And then, just, what I'm saying? It just doesn't, just give it a final, a little more completion to it. I think that'll be much stronger. This way it keeps the show connected. It keeps people engaged and it doesn't like there's disconnect from that. So it's more than just about the moments. And I know a lot about, even myself as a designer, I think about moments, but it's gone beyond that now. And I wanted to just, encourage everybody that's listening to, think about that. It's beyond just moments now. It's beyond just hours. And that's, that if you take a look at that, that's how the activity is going. So that's the biggest thing I could give to everybody. As far as what I saw yesterday, I saw about 30 bands or something like that, maybe a little more than 30. And the ones that were successful had it all figured out. They did the beautiful moment and they resolved it beautifully and it just stayed beautiful. And they were very successful. So that would be my big point for the upcoming week. Obviously, like I said last week, you should have hopefully started a little bit of a schedule so you can keep yourself on schedule for finals, knowing what your goals are for that. And hopefully we're successful this week. And that's it for me. And I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Armbruster, I believe.
All right. Good evening. Yeah, just a couple of things. And again, primarily, this actually has to do, I got two real quick things before I turn it over to Blair. One comes from some director evaluations through the year, talking about music effect and visual effect, and adjudicators at times talking about the opposite. And we all have to realize that both of those captions, obviously, if I'm talking about, if I'm judging music effect, there are going to be times where I may have to talk about the visual aspects going on, and vice versa. It just because it says music effect doesn't mean we're going to focus 100% on just the music. There, obviously both of those have to be coordinated appropriately. So if there's body work or choreography going on, and it's really angular and specific, and the winds aren't addressing that properly in regards to articulation or style, that's going to be something that I'm going to address, where the visual aspect is outdoing what's going on musically. So just be aware that obviously there are going to be times where both sides of effect may have to talk about the opposite. Obviously, if I'm spending most of my tape talking about the visual aspects, that's an issue, but there are going to be times where both adjudicators are going to point out specifics. Last night, judging on the field, one of my biggest things that I noticed, and talking with directors, is a lot of the choreography just kind of dominating what's going on in regards to the musical aspects. So if you do have a section of your show where there's a lot of lower body choreography or upper body choreography and the kids are playing, there's no problem with, breaking that down visually. But if you can, before you add it to the field, don't hesitate to work that chunk with the kids while they're playing. I think sometimes that gets overlooked, where you're just trying to clean things, get stuff put on the field. And obviously with the last 3 weeks of the season, we shouldn't be adding too much. Obviously it's more, about the cleaning process, but taking the time to just break down those visual aspects and really emphasize what's going on musically. A lot of the times, things that I spoke about was just making sure that the clarity of the accents and the articulations are really matching what's going on visually. And that obviously is going to transfer, up to the box in regards to effect. But, overall, again, as you get into critique, don't hesitate to ask questions. That's the biggest thing. There are no wrong questions at all in this activity. Even if you second guess what you're doing, ask the question, because that's the only way you're going to, relieve, that stress in yourself. And, obviously, if you've got a question or you're second guessing it, we all, as directors, adjudicators, designers, we've all been there. And the only way we're going to get better or, move forward is to ask questions that may take us out of our comfort zone. Other than that, I'm going to transfer things over to Blair.
Yeah, I'll be real short because we have Lee here today, and he's of the visual world. So all I'm going to do is repeat probably things that he might say. The only thing I would say is, talking a lot what Dave was speaking about the effect judges. Same thing if you're hearing that from the visual judges talking about music, you're going to hear that because there's going to be crossover. And sometimes there's a cause and effect overlap a little bit, even with ensemble. Some effect may not be working because of a structural problem. You may hear somebody talk about that. So the biggest opportunity that I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, not just here, but around the country, is really nuancing and completing transitions with the color guard. Try to avoid the herd coming on and off, or making sure that they're staying engaged, performance-wise, when they're on the stage, even if they go and lean down and pick up a new piece of equipment and go all back on the stage, they can be seen. And a lot of times when you have kids coming to the front, it automatically draws your attention. So, but that's all I have. I'm going to actually turn it over to Lee. I don't want to take up a lot of time, so we can get as much information from Lee as possible. So down on my right on my screen is Mr. Lee Carlson. Lee is wears many hats in the pageantry world. So I won't list his accolades, but we everybody knows Lee. So welcome, Lee.
Thank you. I keep thinking I've made all the mistakes, and then I discover, no, I can make more. So, I try to learn from that. I think that's important. A couple of things really quickly. I think some of the issues with visual musicality is that band directors at this point in the year sometimes will change how they're contouring phrases. And that doesn't relate necessarily to what the color guard was taught in August. And so I think there's a mismatch in at times because of the phrasing has changed somewhat. And the color guard instructor is worried about 5, 6, 7, 8, rather than how you've made that phrase a little different and missing the nuances. And at this time of year, I think I always love this time of year because I love adding the nuances and the details and trying to get all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, because right now that's been incomplete everywhere. The other thing is that this is, again, for not only mainly color guard, but it applies to everybody, is that I don't think some of the performers are aware of their listening pocket. If you were, let's just talk color guard for a minute. If the color guard is using a tape that was recorded in front of the band and they're in an arc behind it, they're not hearing what they're rehearsing to. So you need to take a recorder and record what they're hearing to. And at this point, they can't hear the trumpets, but they sure can hear the bass drums. So they need to understand where they're listening, because they're back there, and flailing's a weird or a rude word, but they're back there struggling to hear what they're performing to. So that's another thing. And I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute. What we do at this point of the year is you need to let the kids, the performers, understand that it's their turn. You did the design, you did the teaching, you did all the technique. Now it's your turn to step up and own the show. The whole concept of if we take third place, we're not going to have a good band this year. Well, you can only control one band, and that's your band. So Juno's band can't go out and beat anybody else until they can beat Juno's band. So every time they go on the field, whether it's a football game or a competition, they have to do a better job. And they'll come off the field, and at that point, that's when you can say, did you win? Were you better? Whether it's a football game or a competition or whatever it is. Just push to make them better and realize that the competition is within themselves. It's not with others. And it's got to be continually better. The other thing is, this is been such a strange year. It's been a wonderful year to get back to it and all. And I really think across the country, I haven't seen any dead baby shows, or thank God we haven't seen any pandemic shows. So let's hope that we can make the last push with marching band this season to be all about the kids and make them own the show and make them aware that, you still can win a contest. It doesn't matter what the clowns upstairs are saying. If you come off the field feeling good, then you won the contest. That's all there is, and when they announce the scores, it doesn't really matter, because you already know you beat yourself and you're much better for it. So, and especially this year, I think that's important coming back from, Michigan, you didn't have any shows last year at all, did you?
No.
No. And see, we're the same in California, that's, it's coming back, and we're facing the same thing with the fewer kids in the programs and fewer bands. So it's going to take us another 2 or 3 years to build back where we were. And I think we have to keep that in mind and just keep the programs focused to the performers, give them something that they will enjoy performing. I know watching bands yesterday, you could tell where bands would get to a certain point in their show and they really loved this section, and they would perform differently. They would perform with confidence and we got this. And then they'd go at other parts of the show and it's like, oh, I got a heavy responsibility here. I have to get through this rather than performing it. So that's what we've got to get done in the last 2 to 3 weeks, is get them to understand that it's important to be the best you can be. And again, what the clowns say, that's fine. But, and then as far as judges are concerned, we need to give them the best information on what they have at this point. Trying to change something with 3 weeks left, that's an impossible. And we all know that. as a judge, you can say, well, I think it would be better if you did this or that. But at this point, no, I wish it would be better if you clean, you focus on performance, quality, how to get those kids to perform and project all the way up to the top of the box. And I think that's where we are this year right now. I'm off my soapbox now.
I want to jump in and say something that really tags along with what he said. There are a lot of programs this year that are down in numbers. And in these last 3 weeks, I think if you have a focus on, you're actually recruiting for next year right now. The way that you treat the kids this year, the way that you bring the end of the season home is those kids are deciding right now if they're going to do it next year or not. So if you make it a great experience this year, those kids will want to come back next year and they'll invite their friends to come back. So I think that should be something that you have in your mind as you're pushing through the end of the season, setting yourself up for success next year. Yeah.
Yeah. And when a band like that, the juniors or seniors say, yeah, we were a lot better 2 years ago. Well, we hadn't gone through what we've gone through. Right. And again, it's just be the best that they can be at this point and continue to push them to make them understand and own the show. And everybody can be successful. I know that's an old, everybody's a winner. Well, everybody's not going to take first place, but that doesn't mean you can't have a really successful year. So it's just how you focus these last 3 weeks. And I think that's, I think that's the culmination of what we went through in 2020 and where we are right now and where we're going to be in 2 or 3 years. So I think, he hit it right on when he talked about use this as a recruiting tool, have fun and make the kids enjoy what they're doing so that they will come back. They will march in the winter drum lines and be in the wind ensemble and the jazz band and be back ready for marching band and the winter guard and just look at it as we're all building. So let's all build this together.
Exactly.
Great. Do we have any questions from people tonight? Had a couple of really good questions last time. Anybody? Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. I just wanted to make a comment. We're heading into this season for us. We're heading into MCBA. In September, early October, we kind of stayed local and did some scholastic shows. So I don't really know. I know a lot of the judges are the same across the 2 circuits, but I'm not sure what the MCBA judge tapes sound like right now. But one of the things that I've noted to myself, and I let all the kids listen to the tapes and they really enjoy doing that, is there's not a lot of comments that are, hey, thanks for doing this again. Welcome back. Good for you guys. And I guess I'm just asking, a lot of the comments that we've received so far this season are, status quo. This is what you're supposed to be doing. And those same kind of comments as before, which is why we're in the activity to get better and better the kids and to win against themselves. But I'm just asking from your perspectives, because we've got a couple of judges here as well. Are you saying that to the kids? Are you saying, hey, great job for coming back. Thanks. Great job for persevering through this. It's been awful and we're back. So good job for that. I guess it's not really a question. It's more of a comment, but if anybody wants to address that, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I can only speak for myself, and people that have heard my files will say, I thank the kids at the end of the tape in my wrap up, because that's what this activity is about. So I can only speak for myself. I mean, obviously we've tried to make our local judges aware of, hey, they understand it's a COVID season. There's going to be some situations you don't really need to touch on. You don't need to be hammering things and things like that. So, but it's good to know that if you're not getting that information, that we need to know that, because obviously we want to be a positive experience for the kids too, as well. Letting them know that, hey, we understand that you guys are sacrificing quite a bit and things have gotten, shrunk down, so to say. So it's good to hear.
I'm up in the press box, I'm hearing all the different judges say different things, and I'm hearing those kind of comments frequently at the start and at the end of the tapes. So I'm hearing that kind of thing for sure.
Okay, Good.
Mark, I can tell you from where I'm at, we at the first show of the year, which was out of state, that conversation, that comment, that discussion came up amongst judges naturally, very organically before the show. And so what I've done so far this season, and my first MCBA show is next weekend, but I've wrapped that in like Juno in the wrap up. I've said, and I want to take this moment to thank you for being in your school's band program and keeping the marching arts alive. You've done so much and sacrificed so much. So I make sure and put that on there because I'm always assuming that at least kids and staff are playing it. But I think your point, Mark, is well taken. And I think it's something that we should try to recognize from a non-adjudication standpoint, but just as a colleague in the arts at the end of our wrap-ups, that's a good place to put it necessarily, I think.
Agreed. I think that the more you can encourage that among the judges, the better, the better it will be. That is actually a bullet point in the head judge information for BOA, talking about, I don't know about, and this is being very selfish, I don't know if any of the kids missed it as much as I did. And it's just, it's like, oh my God, it's finally done. And I'm so excited about seeing what we've come out the other side with now. And just selfishly, I thank the kids because I get to do this again. And we're all back on the road. We get to see our friends. We get to see great performances. And, when you're looking at a band, none of us know what that band's been through. And, there are kids in there that probably lost grandparents or, whatever they've been through. And it's one of those universal things that we can all relate to. And I think it's important to thank the kids. I go further than that, the directors and the parents, because without the parent support, it never would have happened. Soapbox down.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all your responses. And Lee, I like what you said as well about, taking the last 3 weeks to recruit for next year. I think that's really, I think it's brilliant because I know in past years as a young director, the last 3 weeks is like when we start amping it up and, kids could get hurt because of that, emotionally hurt that is. And this is the perfect time to just celebrate the positivity that everyone's doing. So thanks so much. I appreciate this. Thank you.
Thank you. By the way, it was Charles that said the recruiting part of it. So.
We got a question here. Says, I'd love some insight from you seasoned and experienced directors. My leadership is at the point in the season where they're feeling the pressure of getting every kid in step, marching with proper technique, etc. They want to success so badly. I'm beginning to hear some, put it kindly, urgency in their tone with how they talk to younger kids who are really doing their best, especially the ones that we would all affectionately identify as the strugglers. How have you handled situations to build confidence to the end of the season? I don't want the younger kids getting discouraged or feeling guilty for not contributing like my veterans. Is there anyone that wants to jump in, or?
Well, I'll throw a couple of things out there. I had a pretty strong leadership team through all the years that I was at Reese Puffer, and we actually trained the upperclassmen on how to handle those situations. I mean, we had sessions starting in May where we talked about the most important thing was to help those kids succeed. I mean, they're actually helping themselves to have success by getting the rookies in the group to have the more success. So the more you help the rookies, the better the overall group is going to have success. So if I were in your shoes, I would pull those seniors and those juniors in that might be going a little negative and just have a great discussion with them about how much it's going to help everyone for them to take those kids under their wings and be positive with them. I mean, nobody's going to have any success, and it's going to be really problematic if those young kids really get turned off. So being positive and helping your leaders help those kids. That would be my words of wisdom.
Well, and I totally agree with you. And when you have them together, the ones that are throwing so much pressure and everything, remind them of their first day of marching and how long it took them. You know, we've got kids, every program's got kids that all of a sudden in the junior year, they can march or they can play. And it's a matter of when you're a senior in high school and you're going out and you want it to be great, tell them to take the kid aside and say, look, you've come this far since September or August, whenever band camp started. Now we've got 3 weeks. Let's really keep pushing and encouraging instead of saying, oh, you can't march, or, you know, you don't understand how to do this or how to play this and all that. Just be positive with all the reinforcement. And again, I'm coming off very Pollyanna today, but I think, you know, that's what 2020 did to me.
Well, and I'm gonna say, Brendan said something about he's got a big disparity between juniors, seniors, and freshmen and sophomore. You have a double rookie class this year. I mean,
Right.
Everybody's dealing with a double rookie class, and it just takes extra care to make sure that you bring all those rookies along. So just be patient and try to help your upperclassmen be patient.
Can I add to that, Chuck?
Yeah.
So, like, I was just going to say the same thing, that we're, you know, as a field judge, you know, you're on the field. There are 2 full classes of beginners now, and you know, the upperclassmen numbers have probably dropped off a little bit too. So, you know, trying to just encourage everybody that just, you know, focusing on how far you've come versus how much further to go. Because that kind of positive, like, idea of like, look where you started and look what we are doing now, you know, for the last 3 weeks to build a little more confidence, I think is a much stronger approach than, you know, hounding down the idea of what needs to still be done, and using that positive, like, look how far we've gone. Let's try one more thing. Let's try one more thing, and approaching it as one more idea versus this huge idea, these big, huge things that you want to try to do. I think it's a little easier for younger members to hold on to and grasp that, I think. So that's my 2 cents.
Thanks, Marcy. Anybody else?
I have a thing for you. Last week I came on and I was like, hey, like, you know, our band is behind. Our last day of band camp was the Friday before school started. Like, first time for me as an MCBA director, first time being in charge of this group as a new teacher at this district. So I'm like, man, we're super far behind. What do we do? Your advice was focus on music. And we went from pretty much not touching our closer at all to memorizing 2.5, almost 3 minutes of music within 5 days, which was an incredible feat. And I'm just so proud of the kids for all the work they did this week. They honestly crushed it. And like, no, it's not perfect, but the fact that we went from no closer to having a closer on the field, even though we stood and played the last like 10 charts, like, that was great advice. So I'm just going to echo what was told to me last week. Focus on the music. The rest will go into place, because our morale is amazing. And like, it shouldn't be. We should be struggling, but we're not. We're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Things are going well. We're very excited about it. Morale is just at the best place it possibly could be. So I'm thankful for your advice last week. And I just wanted to shout out to you guys for advising me, a young person, to do those things. And then I just wanted to echo how great these kids have been, and just, I think it's good to hear positive. So just want to chime that in. Thanks.
Hey, Brendan, you're doing really good work. Keep it up. I'm really proud of you.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Keep it up,
Andrea.
buddy.
And, you know, I think one of the things that, you know, over the last, several weeks that I've judged and talked with the directors, is one of the things that came out of the pandemic is that the kids that stayed with the band program, those are the kids that want to be there. Like, you've got like, and let's face it, if you're a band director or you've worked with a program, every program has those kids that are there for different reasons. And some may have been forced by their parents, some may be there for social reasons, but not there for, everyone's there for a different reason. But it seems like this year, every program that I've talked to, the morale is so incredibly high because everybody wants to be there. They've missed the activity. So it's a kind of a rebirth for a lot of programs in a really positive way. On all levels, and so the fact that, there will always be those people that are like, well, we weren't as strong as we were 2 years ago, well, obviously, as Lee said, we all know things have changed, but, taking that energy that those kids have now and just building upon that, it's going to be, you're setting your programs and your kids up for success now and in the future. And it may not be, the success that, honestly, as a country, people look at, first place and trophies, but the success is the program survived. Like, you have a program. Like, there are schools that, they're done, and the fact that you're fielding a band this year and able to use that, in a positive way and build upon it, it's small victories that, those are things that we as adults and educators and teachers understand. Kids may not grasp that concept yet, but those are things to as well reinforce that, yeah, there's going to be, I'm sorry, but you can go to Grand Nationals and find the Grand National champion, and I guarantee you there's going to be kids out of step. It happens. There's no flawless program. And let's face it, I'll say it, my kids, we had some great bands, but there were always kids out of step. And there were always kids not playing. It happens. But it's, there's no magic, there's no magical words to say, but it's just, do what you're doing and know that, this year, the fact that the kids are there, the kids are performing, that's more important than any trophy or any placement, that you're gonna see this year. Just my opinion. I'm just happy to see kids. I mean, I was on the field for the first time in a couple of years yesterday, and I was talking to kids and every band, just talking to them before the show, just to watch them calm down a little bit, because you see the look, the nerves. I had one poor kid, he was the drum major, and they announced the band, and I'm standing next to him, like, all right, here we go. And he just looked, and I'm like, this is where you salute. And he's like, oh, okay. And so, but he was just here in the headlights, like, didn't know what to do because it was their first show. And just to go, here's what we do. And off they went. So, keep it positive. That's the most important thing we can do right now.
Make the last 3 weeks all about the kids.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, you need to have copious notes to figure out what you can do better next year. Again, we're talking about a 4-year project to get back. So, 3 years until we don't have a double class that are, the same.
Right.
So it's a matter of, looking down the road constantly and knowing where the faults of the band and where is the great part of the band. And just realize that, maybe you don't focus on the first trumpets, but look at what the second and third trumpets are doing, because that's your future.
Yeah, and I was going to follow up with that as well for that earlier question. If you're up in the box, or if you're on your podium or wherever, and during rehearsals, throw some heavy compliments to the younger kids. This way, the older kids understand, like, oh, okay, they're starting to get this, and just give them more of a positive attitude, as opposed, as opposed to always saying, the seniors are great, or the trumpets are always the ones that are whatever the better ones, whatever that is. But compliment the younger kids too, because you know all your kids. So if you can just compliment them every once in a while, it'll make them feel great for sure. It'll give them a ton of confidence, and then it'll help the older kids understand. All right, these guys are coming along. That's great, because you're the leader.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty cool.
Can't thank you enough for what you have done for us. Believe me, just like Lee said, it's a lot. The judges, it's meant a lot getting back this year.
Yeah, Absolutely.
All right. Well, seems like questions have settled down at this point. I think our goal was to be 30 to 40 minutes. We're right in the sweet spot, 35. Yeah, I think we're done. Anybody have any last words for us? Dave, Juno, Blair, Lee?
Just
like
keep
I said-
pushing and doing
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because you're changing kids' lives every day. I know that's very Mr. Opus or Mr. Holland's Opus, but it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
And you never know what comment you make that's going to change that kid. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like last week, I know how these things go. And, like 2 days later, you say, oh, I wish I would have asked or whatever. If you have any questions until we meet again next week, feel free to email myself, Dave, Chuck, Blair, anybody. And even if it's a question for Lee, I can send it forward to him. He has no issues with that at all. And yeah, I know questions come up after the fact. So don't be afraid to ask them. We're here to help. We really want to help.
Yeah.
Well, and thank you for including me here. I have such a spot in my heart for Michigan. I was born there, and I don't want to even hear about your winters, but the rest of the year is fine. So I still consider Michigan my home away from home. So
All right.
it's nice to be
Well,
home.
You're always welcome around here.
Exactly.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we're going to
Great.
call it a night. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next
Great,
week.
thank you. Thanks
Yeah,
everybody
great
for
evening, folks.
attending, and we'll see you next week.
All right. Be safe,
Thank you,
everyone.
Lee.
Take it
Thank
easy.
you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks,
Good night.
Lee.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.